can't guarantee this. We can't transfer this. This is something we're called to. But again, this verse is addressing the group. And the first thing is saying, once you have faith, esta'inu. Esta'inu is the form 10 that we know. It means to seek. Seek. This seek is coming from the idea of ana, seeking help. But it's not just like a help that you and I can give each other. Like we have different helps that a human being can do. I can help you lift something. I can help you move something. I can help you fix your car. This type of help is really pointing to our Creator. And this is connected to the type of help that we plead for and we say in our Al-Fatiha. We say what? We say, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Well, we say that 17 times. This is the same thing that you're saying. This sta'inu is nasta'in. It's just a different version of it. So we're saying in our prayer, and I think this is important, let's just go back to Fatiha just to see that. Let me do it on a different one. So think about it, since we know our Fatiha, we're saying, to you alone do we worship, and to you alone we seek help. And the Lord gave us this prayer. Like this is what He wants us to say 17 times a day to get the maximum source of His guidance. He could have chosen any other 7 verses, but He gave us these 7. So there's something important about the words that we're saying to Him. So we're saying to you alone do we worship, and to you alone do we seek help. But think about it. We say this no matter what happens in our lives. You don't add more to it if you experience tragedy. Whether you can go through the toughest times, you say the same thing. You don't decrease it if you're having the greatest time. If you just had a great experience, wedding, birth, you get $1 million. We don't change. Allah is telling us no matter what happens to you as a human being, for those who believe, we still say the same verse. In this verse, if we think of what we like to do is conceptual wholeness. This is something our Imam taught us in the 2000 Ramadan session. So when you're looking at this idea, you're saying, where else does this astainu come from? And we just mentioned our Fatiha. So the first point we wanted to make is that all of us should be seeking this help. When we're dealing with things like loss, things that are out of our control, we should be increasing our prayer. We should be trying to follow this formula. So the first formula is to have faith. The second formula is to seek help. But Allah doesn't leave it like that. He tells us how we have to do it. He conditions the help. What is the condition? Bis sabri. So we have to do this as a group, and we have to do it with a sense of sabr. And who can tell me, we heard that term many times, what is sabr? Okay. What synonym would you use other than patience? What else would you say? Perseverance. Okay. So how do you bring it to life? If you were to do a demonstration of patience, what would that look like? Anybody? Like, how would you, if we were doing a play, we were trying to demonstrate sabr, how would that look?
Like a person that's in a play that may be sick, and they're going through the process of waiting for Allah to heal them.
Okay.
Also in the process of following the doctor's instructions on, let's say, taking the medication of some sort.
Okay.
And not taking their own life. Just waiting for the process to work itself through and being patient with the process instead of trying to end their lives because they can't do it.
So kind of like waiting on a process without taking action. All right, so we can apply this idea of sabr to many things. So let's look at it in terms of employment. If somebody gets unemployed, how does sabr apply to that? Because it maybe look different now that you're dealing with someone who's unemployed seeking employment.
You continue to submit applications.
Continuing. So it's also, one idea is to do something and be patient for something without rushing or being hasty. Another idea is to continue doing something consistently. So those two ideas, these ideas are all within this idea of sabr. Anybody want to? So let's think about the help. So when we thought about this, and I'll just share, we're experiencing things that we are just difficult to process. So I'll just share a story. So a couple weeks ago, I called Brother Clarence because I was going to let him know that we're going to be starting our Wednesday class again. But the weird thing is that at like about 8 o'clock at night, his dad picked up. He usually doesn't pick up. So I'm calling him, his dad picked up, so he's resting. So then the next morning, I'm going to get my coffee at work. It's about 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm walking. I see his name pop up. And I pick up and say, hey, Clarence, I was trying to call you last night for class, let you know we're starting in a couple weeks. And it was his dad. And his dad was telling me, he's like, are you connected to him? Because he's gone. So, like, I'm calling him. His dad he usually picks up. His dad picks up and says, I'm trying to get a hold of his community, and this is the only number that just called him. So he called me back and gave me the news. So when I think of like seeking lost help, like just processing something like that, we may not be able to rely on each other. We have to. That's where your prayer becomes more illuminated, because you don't have a next step or how to process certain things that are happening in our lives. So as I'm experiencing the last couple of weeks, when I'm saying Fatiha, it's like it's more illuminated because we truly need Allah and to depend on Him as the one that we're worshiping and the one that's going to help us, because He sends help to us in ways that we perceive not. And we have to kind of trust that. All right, so the first formula is faith. The second formula is to seek help with patience. But it doesn't stop there. It has this wow here. Bisabri was salat. So that means that we have to be patient and praying. And who wants to reflect on why is that? It is not separated. So you can't just be sitting home doing nothing, or you just can't be waiting. You have to be praying. Why do we think Allah connected these two ideas?
It's the action that comes with the patience, the prayer. That's the work.
Yeah.
And patience.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I don't know if you were a miner with a hammer and you hammer it against a rock. You don't know how many strikes it's going to take. It could take 100. It could take 1,000. But that hammer is like your prayer.
Right.
And you keep going.
Right.
With patience, not knowing when the result of it's going to come through.
Right.
Or even if the result you desire happens at all, but that's the requirement of the sovereign, the patient ones, and
Right.
the believers.
Right.
Continue to pray.
And when we think of salat is we may think of it as just a prayer, but we know, like, we think of salat as a wholeness concept. What are the other pieces? What are the things that are within the prayer? So you have worship, like you have dua. Like dua is as we do the salat to Ibrahim is a dua. Yeah. What we can't even make the prayer without what? Fatiha. But what do you need before you can even make prayer? Intentions. Wudu. Who's that? Somebody in the.
Somebody in the
It sounds like Jabril. Okay. So even like the wudu, and the wudu is a purification. So it's almost like not only is the law telling us to seek, those who believe to seek His help with patience and salat, but before we can do that, we have to also be purified. We have to be people who are purifying ourselves we can't even do the salat without the purification. And what does he say? He is with those who are what? Sabirin. And for my grammar students, what does this start with? Alif Lam. So what does that tell us? Is it a noun or a verb? It's a noun. So when you're talking about an action, if the law would have said this as a verb, that would be like you're saying today's Steve was patient. That has a time limit. That's today. When the law puts something in a noun form as an action, it's describing these people, this is like their lifestyle. So he's describing a people who are sabirin. They have a lifestyle of consistency, a lifestyle of steadfastness, a lifestyle of patience. This is important for us because it would be much different if he described an action. He's talking about a lifestyle, not constricted by time. Like Muslim. Muslim is one who is submitting, but there's no ending. It's over and over again. It's an active thing they're doing in their lives. But then listen, but the verse behind it, the next verse, is really giving us the comfort that we need for all of our situations. It says, never say those martyred in the cause of Allah are dead. In fact, they are alive, but you perceive not. And then it says, and certainly we will nablunakum. This word is test you, but this word here, bala, is not like fitna. We have two type of tests that we hear in the Quran. You hear fitna, which is a test of passion. It's a test that's gonna be like you can feel it happening. Like somebody drops $20 in front of you, and you're like, man, should I pick that up? That's a little fitna. The test of bala is a test of circumstances where it can be a major thing happening in our lives. So Allah says what? He will test you with a touch of fear, famine, and loss of property, life, and crops. But he says, well, bashir, but give good news to those again who are in this lifestyle. They're in this lifestyle of patience and constancy. So I think, and this is like why, like just being here as a community, continuing to do the things that we should do is what helps. I remember even on our open house we had a couple weeks ago, I was asking Ibn, like, should we cancel? And he was like, no, I think Imam would want us to continue. So we actually had it. It was nobody came, but it was an act of continuing to do the things that we do as community. All right. So the next point I wanted to mention that it kind of ties in with something Imam Ronald mentioned in his talk. He talked about as community us becoming more sincere and getting closer. And I think it's important that we look at one of the concepts we get from the marriage to help us with that. And let me share that verse now. Let's see. All right, so what do we have? It says, all right. So the reason I brought this up is because I think that when we think about communities, communities start with what? How do we become a community? Where does it start? Families. Where does family start? Marriage. So I think if you think of like how communities thrive and how you can struggle, I think it really comes down to communication. How do you have the communication? And if you think of one of the verses that our prophet used in the marriage, this is one of the verses that he used. It says, Ya ayyuhalladhina aminu attaqullaha wa qawlan wa qulu qawlan sadiden. It says, O ye who believe, obey Allah and say a word that is right. So think about it. If you're starting with the family, the husband and wife, and this is revelation that our prophet used, peace and blessing be upon him, in the marriage, what is the lesson that we're thinking that, why is this in the marriage khutbah? Just somebody, or open it up and I'll give my thoughts. Why is this verse one of the verses that are used for the husband and wife in the marriage khutbah?
I think because it's easy to assume the worst or think the worst, and but Allah is saying be mindful of Him and say a word to the right. And sometimes, well, like I said, it's easy to assume the worst.
Okay.
I think that's just how our brains work sometimes.
Good, good. Saying the wrong thing?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Saying the wrong thing? Anybody else?
Yeah, I was just going to say that when you're in communication with someone, you may not always agree with what they're saying or how they're saying it, but you can maybe perhaps say one word that will be helpful in telling
Yeah.
that person to know that you're not critical of what they're saying, but to listen.
Yeah.
Pay attention. You don't assume.
Yeah. Ikman Salam. Wakila then Imam Ronald. Go ahead.
Okay, I think it says speak a word directed to the right. Excuse me. I think it means always saying, communicating something to the other person that's going to evolve the other person, that's going to bring them closer to what's right.
Okay, to say things that are going to evolve the other person to bring them to the thing that is right. Okay, thank you for adding that. Imam Ronald?
Yeah, I was thinking that you mentioned that in the Kufa, and you said that the family and the husband and wife coming together, we hope the eventual thing is children,
Mm.
right? And so this is talking about foundationally how you establish community.
Right.
That these kind of issues come up in community. Now, we have to trust each other. We have to love each other.
Yeah.
We have to put up with shortcomings.
Right.
We have to not be backbiting and doing all the forming cliques. All these things are addressed in that,
Mm.
especially in those 3 verses you mentioned.
Right, right. So one thing that we did in our demonstration here, we went to this style of communication, but we have to go back to the first part of it. Because what does it say in first? O you who have faith, taqwallah. So now all of our communication interactions have to be preferenced by fearing Allah. Like if you were getting ready to have an argument with your spouse, we don't do this, but you don't just say taqwallah. You don't think taqwallah and let me get into this discussion. You just start having a conversation. But this is trying to bring us back. So no matter what the position I have, the position she has, the position my son has, if we're having this taqwallah first, that's going to make this thing a little bit differently than if we take that out and then just communicate. So I think this is the step that really can define communities, and we see just around the country, and we see in massages, homes, marriages, countries. This is really like the difference maker. If we can do this better and at least have the mercy and love with each other, it'll help us grow. If we don't, we may have we can struggle. And I pointed out how we had our Congress meeting in Baltimore, and we were discussing finance and education, youth, and it was some really passionate differences. But the thing was that everybody that came to that meeting knew we were going to have these discussions, and it made it a lot easier to get through it, even though they were tense. So I thought this was an important verse to mention. And I have one more verse I wanted to mention, because we talk about shura bainahum, right? What is shura bainahum? Or shura?
Mutual consultation.
Okay. Okay, but when we think of it in the Quran, we think of it as what? Communities. Communities coming together. So let me share the verse that we should think of probably first because it ties into what we're talking about here. Let's see.
It's like Allah says in the Quran about when spouses have a dispute, that you get one person from her family, one person from his family, and in that instance, sure is conducted during that time
Yes.
to settle the dispute.
Okay. So the first idea that we get of shura comes from this verse, 2:233. And it says, it's talking about the husband and wife, but the part where it talks about shura says, no mother or father should be made to suffer for their child. The father's heirs are under the same obligations. But if both decide after this word here, after shura, to wean the child, then there's no blame on them. So when we think of shore, the first shore that we think of it starts with the family. It starts with the husband and wife having this mutual consultation. Then that idea is something that is spreading out through the community in our day-to-day practices. But we may not think of it as a husband and wife first. We think of it probably as community first. Okay. Anybody have a thought on that? Is that something that you thought of before?
That's a good connection. I didn't know.
Somebody on there? Does somebody have a comment online or no? Okay. All right. And the last thing we talked about Friday, and I'll pull it up here, is let me pull it up. We talked about how, as communities, especially us, we are diverted from really what Allah wants us to do a lot of times, and this is tied into the surah that we have here, Surah Takathur. And listen to how Allah says this. He says, Al-Hakamut Takathuru. Now this is an unusual phrase how Allah does something like this. So you see this word here? This word means it's caused to divert you. This is a form verb, but it's saying it caused to divert you. But that's not how you would normally speak. Like if I just says cause to divert you, what would you say? Huh? What's causing me to what is this? So Allah, you switch the order. You would usually say takathuru, and then you would say ahakamu. You would say the competition causes to divert you. But when Allah switches the order in the revelation, sometimes it's really to like trigger your thinking. So you should be wondering just what you said. You should be saying, huh? Why is Allah saying it this way? Because He's getting your attention to say, what is diverting you? Takathuru. The mutual what? The rivalry of consuming more is diverting us from our true purpose in life. And this is why it's even so important for us to be present when we have janazas, because the janazah prayer is a reminder for all of us. It says, Hatta zaratumul muqabir, until you end up in the graves. But we don't think of it as like you personally. That's one way, because that's obviously all of us are going to do that. But we should get the sign when we even go. Like it's one of the traditions to even go and pray for our loved ones once a month, or as much as we can. Go pray for those people, because when you do that, it reminds you of the things that we're distracted by on this side. We get very easily caught up in trying to pile up more resources, wealth, influence, titles, all the things that happen to us. Then we get there and we're like, wow, why have we been so distracted? Why are we not closer as community? Why are we not closer as family? Why are these things happening? So I think this is a good sword that Allah gives us that teaches, that should remind us about the importance of the mutual piling up. It says, and soon you will know, and again, soon you will come to know. And then it says, and you will know with ilm al yaqeen, like certainty. This is a sense of knowledge. And we see that because when we're there, we're seeing a certain reality for all of us. So this is why I tried to mention this Friday, especially for many of our younger people who they may be deferring Islam. They may say, well, I'm a deen when I get older. Or I'm going to wait until a certain point and start deening. No, we need to, me, you, and everybody else need to try to deen now because we don't know. We don't know how many weeks we have, how much time we have. Any thoughts on this sword?
Oh, for sure.
Both of those nouns have the same structure somewhere
Which one?
in the first verse.
This looks like a noun, but it's actually a verb.
Well,
This one
yes,
is a noun.
yes. Subscribing, description, things like that.
Yeah.
Composition begets diversion from all. They go hand in hand. So
Yes.
capitalism.
So yeah, for even as I mentioned, I think we should try to be those who are intensifying our studies, studying the Quran more. Try to get into. We have classes that we're offering Wednesday, Sunday, Monday. So this would be a time where the masjid we should be packed trying to learn and come closer together to help us get through what we're experiencing. But not just that, just to learn more. So who else? Anybody have a thought or anything else? I'm not gonna go too much longer. I know we have to get ready for prayer and transition. Anybody online?
Yeah, Barry.
Brother Bari, go ahead, Brother Bari.
So like, I just got together 2 seconds ago.
We were taking questions for Taleem.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'm just listening then. I just got online.
Anybody else have a comment or question about our theme today? Our theme was Allah is with those who are patient, and this is something that we're going to continue to try to do. Go ahead.
Just kind of going back to what we said about you should be mindful of Allah and speak a word to the right. I think that, I guess because I'm older, I can be more patient. But I can remember when I would, just say whatever.
Right.
And you might have heard the saying that you cannot unring a bell. And sometimes we say things, you've been married a pretty long time. And it's really easy to remember that bad thing somebody said to you. Even if they had apologized, it takes a while. And sometimes you never will forget it. Because again, you can't unring a bell. But, I mean, that's just such a pure and helpful statement right there. To hold up, be mindful of Allah, and speak a word to the right. If we could just do that,
Yeah.
it would make things a lot easier.
That's a good thought. Yeah, you can't unring a bell, but we can overlook. We should overlook and cover sometimes. That's the thing that's hard to do sometimes. Sometimes we not only do we keep our own baggage, that we shouldn't even have baggage. Like you shouldn't be making wudu, make prayer, and take the baggage of your own sin with you after the prayer. We carry with us everywhere we go. You say, I'm a bad person, I did this. If you made a great wudu and made a good prayer, when you finish your prayer and you salam out and you should be a new person. But some of us, the society has created in us this idea that we are what our actions are. And Islam should help us with that.
Well, that's true in Ramadan.
Ramadan.
Ramadan, that's a special month. We
Yeah.
all say that.
Yeah.
We go into Ramadan.
Yeah.
You're supposed to take care of all this stuff before you go into Ramadan.
Right.
We fast for 30 days.
Yeah.
We read the Quran.
Yeah.
30 days. We interact, we say prayers and all that. And then we come out of Ramadan and it's the same thing.
Yeah.
How is that possible? What's not happening?
Right.
I ask myself, for the group, I mean, individually, we're works in progress. Our focus is community.
Yeah.
We can't accept a community like that.
Yeah.
Just like the parents can't accept to have a family where a child is born and they come out just like you, and you're a work in progress.
Right.
You should have an
Yeah.
environment
Yeah.
where you give them the children a good send-off
Yeah.
so they can do better than you. But
That's true.
it's
That's why it's every year though.
every year.
Because if the medicine, if the
That's exactly right.
it's not like a COVID shot or like whatever this, what you can get those things when you're immunizations. Not like that.
One and done.
I don't know. There's a saying of the one of the companions. I gotta remember which one. They said, I think they were complaining to our prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, saying, "O Muhammad, when we're with you, we're so strong in faith. But when we go home, we're different." And I think he responded by saying, "If you were the same with me as you were at home, the angels would come to you and greet you." So we struggle. This is why we have everything. We have 5 prayers. We have Friday Jummah. We have the Ramadan because as people we're not going to ever reach a sense of perfection. We just keep growing and growing. But we do need to get better.
The Christians have a saying, I know you heard it. Let go and let God.
Yeah.
We need to learn how to let go.
Yeah.
The prophet, praise and peace upon him, obviously knew how to do it because he let go so the Quran could come to him.
Right.
You know, in the cave. But Imam Muhammad says it's not. It's the physical cave happened one time, but no other time in the prophet's history was he in the cave to receive revelation. All the rest of the revelation came after the physical cave. He said that's metaphorical. They're telling you that the cave is your own makeup. You got to clean yourself out because the saying of the prophet, God is all good and nothing can approach him with that which is good.
Right.
So our job as Muslims is to clean ourselves up.
Yes.
Because if we do, the Quran will come to us.
Right.
The Word of God.
Right.
And that's the struggle in this. I hate to use these words, but this culture is like a cesspool.
Yeah.
And we leave Jummah and go into it.
That's
We're
true.
gonna leave here and go, television, whatever. And so we should be aware of that because Satan has found a way to get in the culture that influences all of us.
Right.
So in some ways, we're not at fault.
Yeah.
We're like little children in this culture.
Yeah.
And it's constantly bombarding us. So we have all this talk about saving the youth. Well, save yourself first.
Right. That's true.
You see?
Yeah.
I like the metaphor. It's somebody drowning and you can't swim.
Yeah.
So you gonna jump in and save and they both go down, or you gonna try to find a donut with a rope on
Right.
and throw it out?
Like on the airplane, they said, "Well, put your mask on first," and then it is. I think this is why, like, when you study the Prophet Muhammad's peace and blessings be upon him, his life, he had such extreme circumstances, and I think that's because it allows us not to have an excuse. Like think of the people that came into the Ummah that he fought in battle. So how many of us would have, we can't even have a disagreement and accept somebody a year later. Just a simple difference. It's done. We fell out. One and done. Where he would actually be in battle with some people who are fighting him, and then down the line they are in the ranks as brothers and sisters. That's why we have that example. Because if it was just small skirmishes, we would say we can't follow Muhammad and our relationships because he never dealt with what we're dealing with. No, he actually dealt with worse than what we're dealing with. So now, what is our excuse? Yeah, we canceling somebody. They say one thing about you, and no. So that's why we have that example, so that we can see how, in all extremes, we have no excuse in our lives. Yes, that's what I think.
I wanted to make a point about the verse where we're supposed to be patient and prayerful, or prayer. I think also just the concept of making dua, and especially with your patience, what you're asking for specifically, like you have to be very specific about what you're asking God for. Otherwise, you're just waiting, and what are you waiting on, right? But if you specify what it is that you're asking Allah with, it also can provide clarity on when that help does come. So if you're saying, you're dealing with someone who's passed and you're saying, Ya Allah, help my heart feel ease. Then one day you'll start to realize when your heart does feel that ease, you can come back with that gratitude. But if you're just saying, help me, we don't know how that help is going to come, right? So you specify the ask and then you can have clarity about it. And it also can just help you figure out what it is that you need. If you're looking for a job, it's like, okay, I'm looking for a job, but why am I looking for this job? What is it gonna benefit me for? So then you can actually go through the mindfulness of what you're having to achieve.
Everybody hear that? So you're just having a specific dua so that when the help comes, you can see it happening in your life versus just saying, oh Allah, help me. Sometimes that's all you can say is, oh Allah, help me. But I think that's a good point. And I think it actually connects to Surah Duha because it sounds like Allah is addressing the concerns that was on the Prophet's life. And there were very specific things that were called out. He felt abandoned. That's one. He was in need, and Allah gave him the things that he didn't have.
Great. And then you want yeah, cool.
Okay.
Congrats. You are making everything. Well, don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to tell me. Oh, wow. What?
So I think that's a great point to end on, Sister Hania. So does anybody have any announcements before we close out with Fatiha? Anything coming up? I know we have the program today. Anything in the coming weeks? Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
We were supposed to have a reflection on Imam Khalil. And so that I don't know if that was mentioned, but I didn't hear it. So
Okay, I think that was postponed until further notice. Do we have an updated date?
yeah, it should have been. Since it was postponed today, a lot of people was confused about it being in the place of Taleem. So if it's not being done today, it should be done at the next Taleem, inshallah.
Okay. So I think some may have seen the flyer. There's going to be a reflection period. I don't know the whole program. I don't know if anybody's here that would help sponsor that, but it's really like a reflection of Imam Khalil's life. So we'll be coming out and sharing reflections at some point in there. We'll have a flyer go out to the community for that. Okay. So I'll close out with Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Malik Yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. I want to make one announcement. So Johnson C. Smith reached out to Muslim community because they needed services every week. And our masjid took that responsibility to help them out with Friday Jummah services. Imam Jabril is coordinating it. So if you know any students there, we'll be there every week. It's one of us at some point to offer Jummah services. So they're our community. They're closest to us. So we're going to take that responsibility. So you may not see us every week because we may be bouncing back and forth between here and there. So that's it. Assalamu alaikum.